thoughts and observations or questions?
Yeah, me again.
Okay, go ahead, Jill.
I find that tough because I don't lose my temper very often.
Okay.
I was trying to do anxiety, my fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
I was thinking about having an argument with my dad, and most I get upset.
Right.
And then I argue back. So I would let him go on and on and on and on, and then I would get upset.
Yes.
And feel I had to say something. And I'm trying to, and now, and so I was trying to put myself in his shoes and thinking, why doesn't she agree with me? Why is she such a softie? Why won't she let me say all these things I want to say?
Yeah, okay.
Why does she keep stopping me?
Yeah.
I want to, why, I don't know. And I'm not coming to any sort of helpful conclusion. I really wanted to tackle my anxiety, but the questions were all about anger. So I was thinking,
yeah. So, well, I'm sorry. I mean, I obviously it's difficult to cover because you can do it with anxiety, but it would probably be a slightly different process. But one thing that's common to it, and this is kind of what I'm exploring this week, is, when you're very anxious, there's a story that your mind is telling you, isn't there?
No, for sure.
And so this is about beginning to question that story, because those stories come with a great sense of conviction. As Laura said the other week, I had this thought came into my mind that I will never be able to realize emptiness. And there was this feeling of certainty around it. These thoughts that arise in our minds come with this definite conviction.
Well, for sure, around the anxiety, absolutely. It's all future-based, it's all fear-based, it's all, this is going to happen, everything's going to, and that's, but the anger thing, I was trying to really, oh dear, I really don't lose my temper. I get frustrated, maybe I get, but I was trying to do this because I know my dad and I have argued, because he will keep saying things until I react. He'll just keep going,
right.
And I'll go, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to. Nope. I'll just go, nope. And then I get to the point where I go, but that isn't true, and that isn't true, and that isn't true. How can you say that? And that's inappropriate. And no, I'm not going to listen to your, whatever it is.
I mean, I think that's good enough, because what I was really trying to get to within that picture was that when we're in that kind of conflict, whether it's you describe it as anger or a bit of frustration or arguing, whatever it is, but there's a very definite sense. This is, you have your own view.
Yes.
And the other person has their view, and you know that your view is right.
Yeah, well, I know that his view is wrong.
It comes to the same thing, doesn't it? But yes, your view is right and the other person's view is wrong. This is what I wanted to focus on, Jill. And I'm going to say a lot more about it in the talk as well. So, but that, continue to experiment, because hopefully it may not work at first very easily perhaps, but the exercise of putting yourself into the other person's body, to try and think their thoughts, it can be very powerful to undermine that sense of certainty about, the stories are very concrete. This is right, this is true. And we see it in the world, wars happen because this group of people believes this, and this group of people believes that, and both sides know that they're right and the other side is wrong. And that is enough to create war, isn't it? I mean, Jonathan Swift satirized it, didn't he, in Gulliver's Travels? There was a war between the big Endians and the little Endians, the people who cracked their head at the egg at the big end and the little end. And it was about Catholics and Protestants who were killing each other by the hundreds of thousands because, one side says you can have both bread and wine and the other side says you can only have the bread. It's like ridiculous things. But we fight each other and we kill each other because we have different points of view. and we know that we're right and the other person's wrong. This is what I wanted to focus on. So I think the exercise, if you stick with it, you might find you get some progress. Sometimes you get a real breakthrough with somebody, especially if it's a close family member you've got a little bit of difficulty with, because we know those people very well, and we can get inside their minds. It doesn't happen all that easily, but it can happen, and it can be very helpful.
I mean, my real anger moments, which I can probably list on one hand, my losing my temper, is always in defense of something else.
Yes, I can identify with that.
I will flip.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, as I said, I probably count on one hand the number of times it's happened.
Yeah. So you're angry at some kind of what you think is an injustice.
Yeah, like someone being bullied.
Yeah.
I've gone for someone who's bullying someone, If I see animal cruelty, I will literally just go for them. Yeah. Anything like that, I will.
That's my one too, yeah. Especially with the animals, yeah.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't hold back. I will literally. That's my switch, but it's so rare. It's not.
Yeah, well, it might be, that it's a slightly different aspect of emotion that is useful for you to work on then. Well, the anxiety obviously would be useful.
Much more useful.
It's about,
arguing with my dad is much more useful.
Yeah. So what it's mainly about, what I'm trying to bring out is how can we begin to question the stories that our minds tell us that cause suffering for us. Because anxiety causes suffering, anger causes suffering, and they each have a story that isn't helpful. And but in that, when that emotion is playing out, then we really believe it. Inside the emotion, we totally believe that story, but it has nothing to do with reality. That's the point. Anyway, thank you. Is anybody else? Any observations from the meditation or thoughts about this generally? Let's take one more.
Hi, David. I came in a bit late today, so apologies for that. When you say it's not a reality, what is the reality then?
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. Yeah. So I'm just questioning whether it's helpful for me to give a direct answer now, because that's kind of going to be mainly the subject of my talk. But we can at least, there are ways to find out. The first thing is to question that very strong sense of reality that comes with those stories. And usually, if we examine it carefully, especially if we do it when we're in a calm state, so those are good to do it in the meditation, then we can realize that there's another way to look at it. The first part of the answer. There's always another way to look at it. And therefore, when we recognize that, then that sense of very, very solid, definite, this is the truth, and therefore anyone who disagrees is wrong. As soon as you begin to realize that there are different ways of looking at every situation or every person, which is, I guess we can all acknowledge that that's true. Yeah. But when we're in an argument, whether we're angry or not, or when we're in an argument like that, so here there's the feeling of I'm right and the other person's wrong. This point of view is right and the other point of view is completely wrong. That's what I wanted to focus on. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. But actually, seeing that takes you a long way towards seeing what the reality is. Yeah, seeing that, our conviction that there's one definite point of view which is the truth and everything else is a mistake is already giving us a big insight into how things actually are. Okay. So take maybe one more comment or question and then I'll move into the talk. Here's where my anxiety comes, because oh, they didn't experience anything. The meditation didn't do anything for them. So they haven't got anything to say.
I was just going to say that I'm like Jill. I mean, in terms of like, I get really upset by my dad, and I've had him around today, and it's been a really stressful day. And I've had to self-medicate with wine and stuff since he's gone.
So that works better than meditation for you, does it, Ellie?
Yeah, it always is the go-to, unfortunately. It's not
okay.
the best. But I'm like Jill in terms of I don't get angry very often, but I'm raging inside, you know. But I think part of it's to do with is how you're brought up, and if you know, as a Brit, we're quite meant to be quite reserved, and losing your temper is not acceptable, and it's very European, more of a European Mediterranean thing. I mean, when I lived in Paris, I started a job my early 20s, and it was like the first proper job I'd ever had. And I used to see the engineer. I worked for EDF Energy, and the engineers used to scream at each other, and I was so shocked. And I thought, what's it going to be like tomorrow? And it was fine. Everyone was back to normal, you know. So I think they have more of a healthy view of anger, maybe, possibly.
I mean, were you saying, you know, you seem to be identifying anger with that angry behavior, but there's the angry thoughts are the real, you know, anger. So a reserved, stiff upper lip British person might be much more angry than the, you know, sort of flamboyant French or person. But they express it, and when you say healthy, yes, up to a point, expressing anger might be healthy. Yeah, but I think yes, it is healthy in the sense that if that behavior is kind of everybody accepts that that's normal and so it doesn't really mean all that much, you know, and people don't get so terribly upset as they might if it happened here.
I think it cleared the air, and people know where they stand.
Yeah.
I think I'm afraid of anger, and
very yeah. Oh yes, I think many of us are. I am. I realized recently actually that yes, I'm quite afraid of. When I say realize, I mean I knew that I was afraid of anger, but I had an experience of there was a sudden surge of anger, and I was really okay with it. I thought, oh, that's different, you know. Not that, you know, I was condoning the anger, but that just to kind of, okay, well, because if it happens, well, it does happen, you know, and so we can be okay with the fact that it's happening. You know, we don't have to get angry with ourselves for getting angry or think we're bad because anger happens. It happens, and that's a very helpful way to understand it. That's not just, you know, something that I'm doing, but it occurs in my mind. And if I view it in that way, I'm much less likely to either hit out or, you know, give myself an ulcer or, you know, carry a grievance for years. It's when we identify with the anger that it becomes dangerous. The fact that that feeling, that strong feeling just arises, we can acknowledge, okay, well, that happened for certain causes because somebody or something triggered something that was unresolved from my past experience. Actually, that's what it is. You know? So we can get very suddenly angry with something and think, why on earth would that tiny thing cause this massive reaction? And so might not be expressing it, but there's something very strong happening inside, you know. And it's probably because there's something we don't remember that got triggered by it.
So you're saying that it's healthy to feel angry, but it's not healthy to lash out at people?
It's not healthy to lash out at people, I don't think. But it might be, like you say, in a different culture, well, setting, it might be okay to verbally be quite, as long as that's understood and accepted. But is it okay? What I'm not exactly saying that anger is okay. What I'm saying is that it occurs, and to all normal human beings. I mean, maybe the Dalai Lama doesn't experience it, but I wouldn't class him as a completely normal human being. Not a normal level of enlightenment, but for the rest of us, and it's 99.999% of us probably, sometimes we get angry, sometimes we feel angry, even if we don't express it or lash out. And therefore, that's just human. So we can accept it and say, okay, it's all right. But the problem is when we identify it, that's what I'm saying. When we identify with the anger and feel that this angry thought is right and true and the other person really is the problem, that's when it becomes destructive and it's out of kilter with reality. That's what I wanted to talk about. So thank you very much, and I will proceed to...
Spirit to me, that's why I try and defend myself.